You've been trying to change your life for months, maybe years. You've read the books, watched the videos, tried the techniques. You've visualized, affirmed, journaled, meditated. And yet here you are, still stuck in the same patterns, the same relationships, the same financial situation, the same emotional loops. Sound familiar? Here's what nobody tells you about transformation. The reason you're not shifting isn't because you're doing it wrong. It's because you're still holding on to the very identity that created the reality you want to escape from. You cannot quantum shift while dragging your old self along for the ride. Today we're going to uncover why every attempt at change has been sabotaged by the one person you trust most, yourself. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what needs to die for your new life to be born. If you're ready to stop recycling the same year over and over again, hit that subscribe button now, because here at Quantum Horison, we don't just talk about change, we show you how to become it. Let's start with a truth that might sting. Your current identity is your prison guard. Every morning when you wake up, that familiar voice in your head immediately starts running the same program. The same thoughts, the same worries, the same limitations. It's like a broken record that's been playing the same song for so long, you've forgotten there's an entire music library waiting to be discovered. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people think identity is fixed. They believe they are their past, their mistakes, their conditioning, their circumstances. They walk around saying things like, "I'm just not good with money," or "I'm terrible at relationships," or "I've always been anxious." And every time they say these things, they're not describing themselves. They're programming themselves. Your identity isn't who you are. It's who you've practiced being. And if you've been practicing being someone who struggles, someone who can't break through, someone who always falls short, then congratulations. You've mastered that identity. You've become so good at being that person that it feels natural, automatic, inevitable. But what if I told you that this person you think you are is actually just a collection of habits, mental habits, emotional habits, behavioral habits that have been running on autopilot for so long, you've mistaken them for your true nature. The scared person isn't you. The limited person isn't you. The person who always sabotages their success isn't you. They're just patterns you've been rehearsing. Think about this for a moment. A caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly by trying to improve itself as a caterpillar. It doesn't go to caterpillar self-help seminars or read books on how to be a better crawler. The caterpillar has to dissolve completely. Its entire structure has to break down before something entirely new can emerge. This is what quantum shift requires. Not improvement, not upgrading. Complete dissolution of who you've been so who you're becoming can take form. And this is where most people get stuck. They want the butterfly, but they're not willing to let the caterpillar die. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you're living in a house that's falling apart. The walls are cracked, the foundation is unstable, the plumbing is broken. You could spend years patching holes, repainting walls, fixing leaks. But no matter how much you improve it, you're still living in a fundamentally flawed structure. Now imagine instead of renovating, you decided to demolish the entire house and build something completely new on that foundation. That's the difference between self-improvement and quantum shift. One tries to fix what's broken, the other starts fresh with a clean slate. Your old identity is that crumbling house. And every technique you've tried, every method you've learned, every strategy you've implemented has been like putting fresh paint on rotten wood. It might look better for a while, but the core structure remains the same. This is why you can manifest money and then lose it. Why you can attract love and then push it away. Why you can experience breakthrough moments that fade back into the same old patterns. Because underneath all your efforts, the old identity is still running the show, pulling you back to what's familiar. But here's what's fascinating about identity. It's not just what you think about yourself. It's what you expect from life. It's how you show up in relationships. It's what you believe you deserve. It's the stories you tell about why things happen to you. It's the emotional signature you carry into every room you enter. Your identity is broadcasting a signal every moment of every day. And life, like a perfect mirror, keeps reflecting that signal back to you as your experience. Change the signal, change the reflection. But you can't change the signal by thinking different thoughts over the same identity. You have to become someone who naturally thinks those thoughts. Let me share something that might surprise you. The version of you that has everything you want already exists. Not as a fantasy, not as a possibility, but as a vibrational reality that's available right now. The only thing standing between you and that version is your attachment to who you think you are. This other version of you doesn't struggle with the same issues. They don't have the same fears, the same limitations, the same patterns. They move through the world with a different energy, make different choices, attract different opportunities. They are, quite literally, a different person. And the gap between who you are now and who they are isn't time, it's identity. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you stop being one person and start being another? The answer might shock you in its simplicity. You stop defending your limitations. You stop explaining why you can't. You stop telling the story of why you're stuck. Every time you justify your current reality, you're voting for it to continue. Every time you explain why change is hard for you, why success is difficult, why love always ends badly, you're reinforcing the very identity that creates those experiences. But what happens when you stop? What happens when you refuse to be the narrator of your own limitation? Something beautiful begins to occur. The old identity, starved of your attention and energy, begins to weaken. And in that space, something new can emerge. I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to wake up tomorrow as the version of you who already has what you want. Not pretending, not visualizing, but actually being that person. How would they breathe? How would they walk? What would they expect from their day? How would they respond to challenges? What kind of energy would they bring to their relationships? That person isn't a future version of you. That person is you, without the old programming, without the limiting beliefs, without the stories that have kept you small. That person is who you are when you strip away everything you've learned to be and remember who you actually are. The quantum shift happens when you realize that becoming this person isn't about adding something to who you are. It's about subtracting everything you're not. It's about releasing the layers of conditioning, fear, and limitation that have been covering up your true nature like dust on a diamond. In the next part of this journey, we're going to dive deep into the specific mechanisms that keep the old identity alive. We'll explore the invisible contracts you've made with limitation and how to break them. We'll uncover the emotional addictions that keep you returning to familiar patterns and how to finally set yourself free. But before we go there, I want you to do something. In the comments below, write one limiting belief about yourself that you're ready to release. Don't explain it. Don't justify it. Just name it. Sometimes the simple act of naming what we're ready to let go of is the first step in the dissolution process. Here's something most people never consider. The old identity doesn't just disappear because you decide you want to change. It fights back, and it fights dirty. This is where the real work begins. Because your old identity has been your survival mechanism for years, maybe decades. It knows every trick, every weakness, every fear that will pull you back into familiar territory. It's like a master manipulator that knows exactly which buttons to press to get you to abandon your transformation and return to what feels safe. Let me explain how this sabotage works. Picture this. You're finally making progress. You're feeling different, acting different, attracting different results. And then something happens. Maybe it's a setback at work, a conflict in a relationship, or just a moment of uncertainty. Suddenly that old voice pipes up. See, this isn't working. You're just fooling yourself. You're not cut out for this. Why don't you just go back to what you know? And here's the trap. Most people think this voice is wisdom. They think it's their intuition protecting them from disappointment. But it's not wisdom. It's your old identity desperately trying to stay alive. Because if you truly transform, if you become someone completely different, then what happens to who you've been? That identity faces extinction, and it will do everything in its power to prevent that from happening. This is why change feels so uncomfortable. It's not just about stepping into the unknown, it's about allowing a part of yourself to die. And death, even the death of who we no longer want to be, triggers every survival instinct we have. But here's what I've discovered after years of studying human transformation. The discomfort isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. The discomfort is a sign that you're doing something right. It means the old structure is beginning to dissolve. It means you're in the sacred space between who you were and who you're becoming. Think of it like this. When a snake sheds its skin, there's a period where it's vulnerable, where the old skin is too tight, but the new skin isn't quite ready. That in-between space is where the magic happens. That's where transformation lives. And that's exactly where you need to learn to be comfortable. Most people abort the process right here. They feel the discomfort of being between identities, and they rush back to what's familiar. They'd rather be miserable and certain than uncertain and free. But what if you could learn to embrace this space? What if you could see the discomfort not as a problem to solve, but as a sign that you're exactly where you need to be? Now let's talk about the specific ways your old identity keeps you trapped. The first is through emotional addiction. Yes, you heard that right. You can become addicted to your own emotions, even the ones that feel terrible. Your body produces chemicals that correspond to every emotion you feel. When you're angry, your body releases a specific cocktail of hormones and neurotransmitters. When you're sad, anxious, frustrated, it's the same thing. Different emotions, different chemicals. And here's the kicker. Your body can become dependent on these chemical states. This means you can literally be addicted to being angry, addicted to being a victim, addicted to being stressed or overwhelmed or heartbroken. Not because you enjoy these feelings, but because your body has learned to crave the chemical cocktails they produce. So when you try to shift into a new identity, an identity that's naturally peaceful, abundant or joyful, your body starts going through withdrawal. It starts craving the familiar chemistry of limitation and struggle. And what does it do? It creates situations, thoughts, and reactions that will give it the chemical fix it's been programmed to expect. This is why you might find yourself creating drama when things are going well. Why you might sabotage success just when it's within reach. Why you might pick fights or create problems that don't actually exist. It's not because you don't want to succeed. It's because your body is chemically addicted to the identity that struggles. Breaking this addiction requires more than just changing your thoughts. It requires changing your body's chemical expectations, and that happens through consistent practice of new emotional states. You literally have to retrain your body to crave different chemicals. The chemicals of joy, peace, gratitude, abundance. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your old identity isn't just maintained by emotional patterns. It's reinforced by the people around you. The individuals who know you as the person you've always been have an unconscious investment in keeping you exactly where you are. Think about it. If you transform completely, if you become someone radically different, what happens to your relationships? Some people in your life might feel threatened by your change because it challenges their own limitations. Others might feel abandoned because you're no longer the person they bonded with over shared struggles. This is why quantum shift often requires what I call relationship quantum entanglement. Some connections will naturally evolve to match your new frequency. Others will fall away, and new relationships will emerge that align with who you're becoming. But here's the part nobody warns you about. Your old identity will use these relationship changes as evidence that you're making a mistake. It will whisper things like, "See how you're hurting people. See how you're becoming someone nobody recognizes. Maybe you should just go back to being who you were." Don't listen to that voice. The people who truly love you want to see you become who you're meant to be, even if it means the relationship has to evolve. And the people who only love the limited version of you, well, they were never really seeing you anyway. Now let's address something crucial: the role of your environment in maintaining your old identity. Your current environment is set up to support who you've been, not who you're becoming. Everything from the books on your shelf to the shows you watch, from the places you go to the conversations you have, it's all calibrated to reinforce your existing identity. This is why sometimes quantum shift requires quantum changes in your external world. Not because the external creates the internal, but because the external can either support your transformation or sabotage it. If you're trying to become someone who values their time, but you're still surrounded by people who waste hours complaining about their lives, that's friction. If you're trying to embody abundance, but your environment is filled with reminders of lack, that creates resistance. Your environment should feel like home to the person you're becoming, not the person you've been. This might mean changing your physical space, your social circles, your daily routines, your information diet. It might mean being ruthless about what you allow into your consciousness and what you choose to filter out. But here's what's beautiful about this process. As you begin to shift internally, you'll naturally start making different choices externally. You won't have to force yourself to change your environment. You'll simply stop resonating with things that don't match your new frequency. And this brings us to perhaps the most profound aspect of quantum shift. The moment you truly release your old self, reality begins to reorganize itself around your new identity. Opportunities appear that were invisible before. People show up who match your new energy. Circumstances align in ways that seem almost miraculous. This isn't magic. This is physics. You've changed your vibrational signature, and the universe is simply reflecting that change back to you. But this reflection can only happen when you've truly let go of who you were, not just intellectually, but cellularly, energetically, completely. In the comments, I want you to share one area of your life where you can feel your old identity trying to pull you back. Maybe it's in relationships, career, health, or finances. Name it, so you can begin to see it clearly. And if this video is helping you understand something about your own transformation that you've never seen before, hit that like button and subscribe to Quantum Horizon, because we're just getting started. The next phase of our journey together goes even deeper. We're going to explore the actual mechanics of identity death and rebirth, how to navigate the void between who you were and who you're becoming without falling back into old patterns. Because here's what happens in that void, that space between identities. This is where most people panic. They've let go of who they were, but they haven't fully stepped into who they're becoming. They're floating in this liminal space where nothing feels solid, nothing feels certain, nothing feels real. Your mind starts playing tricks on you. It tells you that maybe the old life wasn't so bad after all. Maybe you were being ungrateful. Maybe you should just accept your limitations and stop reaching for something more. This is the dark night of the soul that every transformed person has to navigate. But what if I told you this void isn't something to escape from? What if it's actually the most sacred space you'll ever occupy? Because in this emptiness, in this not knowing, in this dissolution of everything you thought you were, something miraculous is happening. You're being composted. Like fallen leaves returning to soil, your old self is breaking down into the raw materials that will nourish who you're becoming. Most people try to rush through this phase. They want to skip the uncertainty and jump straight to the new identity. But you can't microwave transformation. You can't bypass the breakdown. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly overnight. There's a complete dissolution phase where it literally becomes soup before reorganizing into something entirely different. So here's your choice. You can keep trying to improve the caterpillar, or you can trust the process of becoming the butterfly. You can keep defending who you've been, or you can surrender to who you're meant to be. The quantum shift isn't waiting for you to get ready. It's waiting for you to let go. Your new life is on the other side of releasing your old self. Are you ready to dissolve? Subscribe to Quantum Horizon and let's transform together.